told always make it look like you're having a good time when we start this thing, because it comes in. You are live. Hey everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Photoserve podcast. Just right off the bat, I'd like to thank both Photo Brigade and Adorama TV for letting us use their wonderful space and broadcasting this podcast. Photoserve is a portfolio site where photographers post their work and creatives come to find it. So there's my sales pitch. Today I'm with Laura Crosta. She's an award-winning photographer and director based in both Brooklyn, New York, and Los Angeles, California, specializing in lifestyle, portrait photography. She captures her subjects in an honest, shining way and how they interact with themselves and the world at large. So thank you, Laura, for joining me.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Adorama and PDN Photoserve. This is a nice opportunity.
It's a great opportunity,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Well, Laura, when I took over my position working at Photoserve, part of my duties were to figure out who the member of the month was, and Laura was very kind to be my first member of the month. So
I didn't realize I was the first. That's awesome.
Well, my first member of the month when I took over. So I essentially just hammered her with questions, which I'm going to do again. So tell me a little bit about where you're from, and tell me about your journey to get to start for, like, early career types of stuff. And as we do this, we're going to show some stuff from Laura's early career.
Do you want me to start with college,
Well, tell me where'd you grow up?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
And I started out as an artist, a fine artist. I was drawing and painting and doing pottery. And I ended up at Syracuse. And when I was there, I was introduced to the Newhouse School and a program that was advertising design and photography. And in my head, I was like, oh, this is great. I should learn about photography as well, because, as someone who wants to do art and implement art, I thought knowing all means of art would be helpful.
As it should be. It
Yeah.
should be. Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about college.
My first photography experience, when I actually got into Newhouse, I took a class with a professor who shot on the Syracuse basketball court.
Okay.
And he sort of challenged me to get on the basketball court. So this is actually how I started photography. He's like, you can't get on the basketball court. And I was like, I'm a design student. I can make a pass. I can do it. So I made the pass, walked onto the court, Syracuse, big school basketball.
Right.
And
really big school basketball.
And started shooting. And so my first sort of gig was working in the darkroom for UPI.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I didn't tell you.
And you didn't tell me that earlier during our pre-interview. We thought all this out, so if it just seems like we're just pulling this out of our heads.
I left a few nice little nuggets for you.
Tell me about this picture of Michael Jordan.
That, I would say, for me, that sort of started my career.
Oh.
I was, in my head, personally, it's like, oh, you've actually, done something that people will see. I had moved to LA, and the agency at the time was Ground Zero Advertising, and they were looking for a photographer to shoot in conjunction with the TV production. And they had a lot of other photographers they were thinking about, but the schedule wasn't right, and the budget was a little more challenging, and of course I was new and fresh.
Right.
And when they asked me, I think I was just over the moon.
Come on, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Number 23. I probably had that Walter Yost photo of Michael Jordan on my wall, when I was a teenager. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan.
Yeah, no, it was great. And the interesting thing about shooting on set in conjunction with the TV production, and especially with a celebrity who only has a specific amount of time, you get 5 minutes for each particular setup that you have to shoot. And they forgot about us. We wanted this shot in the bathroom. We went into the bathroom. We closed the door because I was basically standing at, the edge, with my back against the door.
Right.
And we got a good 10 minutes in here to actually get a really, what I thought was just a intimate shot.
Just Michael and yourself. Mm-hmm. And this was for who was the final client?
It was was it?
It's like a shave company.
No, it was his fragrance. Do you remember when he made a fragrance?
I think I do.
It was Bijou or something. I can't remember, the guy in the tuxedo on the billboards all the.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm really not in the market for the cologne. So tell me more about early. Well, you know what? I think this is a good segue into the next piece, which is.
Well, actually, go back to the one.
Oh, okay.
Just because I've been shooting for such a long time, like the stuff you're looking at right now is all film.
Right.
So it's Tri-X.
And was printed by you, or these prints of scans, or scans of
It's
prints, or
scans,
prints of scans?
Scans of prints.
Yeah.
So I used to have a dark room in various homes that I lived in Los Angeles.
Right.
And would print everything and spend hours in there. It was like really good fun.
I professionally printed for years and years and years at Lexington Labs, and printed for Danny Clinch and Max Viducal and other luminaries. Okay. So you said you had a funny story about one of these images. Is this the car image that?
Initially, when I started shooting, I would do everything out of focus. It was just something that I liked to do.
I like to do that too. Yeah.
It just gives a nice mood and idea, and it gives you, as a viewer, more of a thought when you're looking at the photo of what's actually going on.
Right.
And someone had said to me years ago, do you actually know how to focus? And I was like, yes, I do actually know how to focus.
So that's a story?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a dumb story.
It's just,
but
so now
so just to bring that back to old school, like you had to focus. Before all the digital cameras came into your life, everything you did was manual.
I remember my first autofocused SLR, which was like a Nikon N90 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And sorry, Nikon, but it focused really poorly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm trying to remember.
But now they're amazing.
Over. Oh, they're great now.
Okay,
but
so you leave college and you go straight to LA? No, you don't go straight to LA, because you go and ski in Vail for like a year. And you told me that you had a pretty decent job offer here in New York straight out of college, but you blew that off.
Yeah, at an advertising agency as a junior art director.
But that to me is the bridge. You would have stayed in art direction probably and never explored this maybe until years later. How do you feel about that choice? You feel good about that choice? Or you look at
I absolutely feel good about the choice. I love the fact that.
And I'm going to scroll through these images from LA
I love the fact that I get to work with art directors, and it's actually create the final result. And I think you can either have your thought about what it should be and the actual application of it. I find it much more gratifying to be able to hand that piece of art over and not just hand the idea over.
Right.
But given that I can now collaborate, that process to me is like the best process in the world.
Yeah, and from what you told me, you understand from the art direction side of the whole equation what they want out of a photographer, which I think is really brilliant, is a brilliant way to go about this. And so a few of my friends when I was shooting got jobs as art directors because they wanted to bend their head around that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do that, and I almost regret that I didn't, because maybe I would have had a different path in my career. I'm not sorry for the path that I had, but you always, sometimes you're up in the middle of the night, you're thinking, and you go, hey, what could I have done differently that would have shaped this or that?
Well, I find it's always interesting when you're initially proposed to do a job. I always want to know what the initial idea was, because they spend 6 months working on that idea, and we get that idea for 10 days.
Yeah.
Like from start to finish. You have the call, you go into production, obviously get the job, you go into production, and you shoot the job.
Right.
It's nice to know where it started so that you can give them a breadth of work, as opposed to just what the client
Right,
approved.
getting the
Yeah.
idea from the beginning. And here's some dogs.
That was
little-
for Pedigree with
Yeah.
Chiat Day in Los Angeles. And we actually went to all the dog kennels, and all of the dogs that we shot were able to get adopted.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it was 3 days of super cute,
So
sad dogs.
you took shelter dogs,
Mm-hmm.
and you got them adopted. That's amazing. And they look like they're well behaved. What did they say? Never work with dogs and children, animals and children.
I got bit
And
by
Milton,
one of them.
You got bit by one.
Of like the
Which
the
one? The
100
pug? The pug?
dogs.
The pug?
Ah, gosh,
Those
I
dogs are
don't-
mean.
yeah. No, these dogs, those dogs are great. Margaret Midget was the creative director on that, and she, if you know a little bit about like advertising history, she was Lee Clow's assistant,
Okay.
and now she's a creative director, and has been one for a while, and she hired me to do this particular job.
That's awesome. I like adopted. Adopted dogs are
Oh,
awesome.
they're
Go
so
adopt
great.
a dog. Everybody watching and listening. So let's go through some more of
So the
these.
stuff you're looking at right now is sort of when I jumped back into music. Initially, when I started my career, I was shooting hip-hop singers
Right.
and rap singers in Los Angeles. That was sort of the first jobs I got. And then I did a little bit of lifestyle stuff for car shoots because I was...
Which we saw here.
Mhm. That's
That's a music slash
a
car
music
shoot.
thing. That was Rolling Stone Year in Rock Calendar.
Okay.
So I worked on that, I think, for 3 years. And during that time, if you want to switch away from Gretchen to the other ones in that series, I ended up becoming friends with a number of those artists, and they invited me out on the road with them.
That's awesome.
That's Nike.
I know these are no particular. These are truth be
Yeah.
told, Laura got these to me very late last night because she had.
There you go.
So
So
here,
go back
here's
to them. So that's a band called the Ducks from Winnipeg, Canada. And I ended up on the road with them on and off during like a 2-year stint. And also after that, they did some advertorials with Rolling Stone and ended up meeting a group of artists that all played at the Hotel Cafe in Los Angeles.
which is the segue to the next
Mhm.
the next piece that we have
And
here.
ended up basically meeting them out on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to shoot them, shoot publicity stuff for them, some album covers, play the trailer.
Oh, play the trailer.
Hmm.
All right. That's not the right one yet. We gotta go
And what
here.
sort of led being on the road with all the musicians from the Hotel Cafe.
Okay, so talk until it boots, which is always the case, right? Whenever you want something to work, it never actually does.
For those of you who haven't been to Los Angeles, the Hotel Cafe is a small singer-songwriter venue. And the idea of the tour was to take the musicians that played there with a house band and tour them around the country.
Okay.
And each one of those singers couldn't, at the time, necessarily tour on their own and have the funding for that. So putting everyone together on one bus and rotating the singer-songwriters at the different venues gave everyone the chance to perform nationwide.
Right.
And
That's a great idea.
Oh, it was super. So I
Let's
ended
see.
up on tour with this in 2008. And I think I did 30 to 30.
30 dates. And who were the bands that played?
Josh Radin, Carey Brothers,
Okay. This is okay. Keep going. Just
Imogen
keep
Heap,
talking.
Ingrid Michaelson, Sarah Bareilles, William Fitzsimmons.
My computer's having a hard time with all of this stuff. This is what happens when you do things live, people. Things happen, right? And of course, the whole thing is like now not working properly. All right, let's just keep talking. You know, we can. You say you draw, right? We can just draw some.
I can draw the whole
We
thing.
can just draw the whole thing.
Well, I can just eventually I can just tell the story.
Yeah,
of it
go ahead.
Because you can go to Vimeo, and actually log into my page
And you can see
at Laura
all of
Crosta
our,
and see the
and see all of the
see the trailer for the video.
things he shot. I'm more afraid that like now it's crashed. So, okay, Let's do
So
a little. Keep
so
talking.
That tour led me to do a feature documentary, which in my head at the time I never thought would be something that I would trajectory into.
Right.
But the artists on that tour were comfortable with me. So as well as shooting stills, which I did the first year I toured with them, the second year I bought a video camera and shot an entire film. And then
you shot the film, and this would be the trailer that we're hopefully going to show about the film. And we're back up with this. Let's see if we can get the trailer.
And then
let's go through these. Mm-hmm. Let's go through some of the music images while we're here. So this is now in LA, or is this back here? Laura does move back to New York at some point.
Yeah.
Back to the New York City area.
2006, but I probably from like 2006 to 2011 I was going back and forth a lot.
Between New York and Los Angeles.
And now it's just when jobs occur.
Because you're living in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So are these bands from the hotel?
Some are from the Hotel Cafe, but others are just people that I met. Once you are ingratiated into one group of musicians, it sort of branches off from there. And this person knows that you photographed them, they were comfortable with you.
Yeah.
And then you're recommended to someone else. That's Rachel Yamagata, who's a fantastic artist. And her and I have worked together on 2 music videos now and a variety of publicity shots over the past like
so you
6,
shoot
7
do
years.
you shoot the art for her albums and such?
Portions of her albums, a lot of the publicity stuff, and music videos.
How does that work now, where everything's like a digital download, and is there still a market for CD art?
Yes, because every time you're downloading, you're seeing a cover of a CD. People aren't necessarily buying the CDs as much, but certainly they can buy them when they're on tour, and musicians are touring more.
Right, because they have to tour because the record sales don't necessarily pay.
Tour more and doing sync music for TV, like that's a big like revenue stream right there.
So another music for commercials or music for shows or for everything.
Shows. Yeah. There's like gazillion like sync licensing companies out there.
Talk to me about who inspired you? Like who would you, if you could sit down with one photographer, who would that person be to pick their brain a little bit? Living or dead? There you go. There's that question, right? Who would you have dinner with, living or dead?
Oh, I don't know.
Well, amongst your influences,
Robert Frank, probably.
Yeah, amongst your influences, Robert Frank.
I just think he's amazing, and I've looked at his work over the years. Like I always use it on inspiration pages.
Right.
When I'm trying to think of a personal project that I want to tackle.
Going back to your interview that we did over last summer, you talked about watching some kind of art, like how you get prepared for a shoot that you watch, like art movies.
Oh yeah.
Like tell me about these art movies that you watch. My favorite art movie, and I don't know if it's necessarily art movie, but Amelie. I can watch that with the sound off. I can watch it with subtitles. I can watch it dubbed. Anytime it's on TV, that's one of those movies I can always watch. I find Audrey Tautou just mesmerizing, and
great,
it's just so great. It's amazing visually. So what's the movie? Is it one movie that you watched?
No,
or is it any particular movie?
I just sort of scroll through stuff and look at camera angles. So it's not a specific movie, and what the actors are doing and what's in the foreground, what's in the background.
So it's more of a cinematography type of angle that you're trying to.
It's not the mood or tone of the movie. It's just the cinematography.
Oh, I get it. So do you have a favorite cinema photographer? Do you research cinema photographers?
I don't. I just watch it. Yeah. I just watch stuff, and if I like it, I take a screen grab of it and put it like in a folder and save it.
Oh, really? So you have like a whole screenshots of...
Yeah. But I don't necessarily like search out who's shooting it. I should, actually. That would
bad.
be... I know,
I'm so bad. Here's Slash. Any particular story about Slash? Slash and Perry and
they're all there.
And Tom Morello.
They're all there.
Anything you want to say? Breckin Meyer, what the hell is he doing in there?
That was at South by Southwest. It was the year that I was shooting the Hotel Cafe film. And these guys all came to South by to perform. And they took over the green room of the Hotel Cafe, kicked everyone out but myself and Miko, who's in the photo.
Okay.
So I was allowed to go and still document, which was fantastic. And they were all great, nice. Slash was very funny. He's a Jersey guy.
Is he really from I didn't know that about Slash.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah? That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love to hear guys from New Jersey.
Yeah.
So we're going to attempt to boot this document, because we're talking about this doc, right? So let's try and actually see it, and here it is.
And this movement, almost, the Hotel Cafe filled
audio?
a void.
The whole idea was taking a typical Saturday night and putting it on a tour bus.
The way that the tour went is what it feels like to go to the Hotel Cafe and see my friends that I love.
It's much more than a tour. It's, the tour only lasts for 6 weeks, but what happens after the tour is going to, hopefully last the rest of our lives.
All right, so Seth is telling us that Seth's over there. He's running the whole thing. He's telling us that went out pretty nicely. That's awesome. So where can if people want to see the whole movie, where can they see the whole movie?
I am uploading it to Vimeo, and it should be available for rent.
For rent on Vimeo? Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And let's segue into the next body of work here, which is Laura's personal work.
Yeah, I love personal work.
So you have this idea about balloons. Tell me about how the balloons come about.
I was just looking for something.
I just want to start. I'm going to cut you off. I love this. I think it's really smart. I think it's really funny. Whenever people do something like I'm going to scroll through them while I'm talking. Whenever some people do this, I feel like the picture needs to be solid before the concept gets in there, and I feel like that's what they did. I know a guy named Roger Schneider, and he does these photos of these big rigs with these women there, and the pictures are really good if you take the big rig away, or if you take the woman away. It's a great picture of a big rig or a big picture of a woman together. It just makes something different, and that's exactly what you did here.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
That's really sweet. Generally, I'm a fairly sarcastic person, and I wanted something that sort of spoke to that, and also spoke more than the photo. There was a campaign I worked on, I don't remember what year it was, that was called Say Something. And every time I think about doing a project, it's like, what do I want to say? Like, what is going to bring the idea that's in my head visually to life?
So how long? Okay. How long do you want to give yourself a project? Mm-hmm. How long do you sit and concept this project out before you actually, or is this something that's being shot along the way? You're taking somebody aside during an ad shoot. So you concept it out, and how long does it take before you really start shooting it?
It could be a day, it could be a month. It just depends. Like I'll write notes down on all the little things that I'm thinking in my head, and a lot of it is, right before bed.
Yeah, that's when the best ideas come,
when
right?
you're kind of when your brain is sort of relaxing.
Yeah, a little dopey, and yeah.
And it's like, what would be interesting? What haven't I said yet? What do I want to say, and how am I going to visually say that?
You're one of those people that I hate because you actually write those freaking ideas down.
Some I don't.
I'm the one that goes,
that.
oh, that's so good, I'm going to remember it in the morning. And it never, and Seth's shaking his head too. He's like, no.
You have to write it down, because sometimes if I'm super tired, I'm like, oh, wow, that was a really great idea. I should do that. And I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what was that? I have no idea what exactly that was. And the thing is, it's like, if you remember it in the morning, then I think it's a good idea as well.
But
I feel sometimes that has some legs on it.
Right. And then here's your project with hotels. And is this tied to the hotel cafe project that we just saw the trailer for?
Yeah, they had asked me to.
We really put this in. We put a lot of thought into putting this in order, people. Just so you know.
Sorry.
What's that beeping? Okay. So tell me about the hotel. Are these the hotels that people played at, or?
No. Basically, it was. I just wanted to find signs, and that just said hotel.
Oh.
That's it. And I have probably about another 70 of them.
Oh, wow.
Still on my computer from various cities and countries, and I need to add to this.
That's great. And doing all the traveling and such.
Oh, it's awesome. And like I'll be walking down the street, like in Amsterdam, and I'm like, there's a
Great hotel.
like running down the street with my camera.
Now, is this a mix of digital and film?
The hotel signs are all digital.
All digital, and you just
Yeah.
make them. You just kind of make them look like film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good that you say that they look like film.
No, I mean, if I really looked at the files, I'd be able to tell, because digital renders differently than film and scans.
You should see the
But
prints
just-
that are 4 by 4 feet by 4 feet.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And do you show those? Like
I
you
would
have?
like to.
You'd like to? Because I feel like someone would buy these because they're timeless.
Yeah. One day I'll make my little art site.
Do you have them like hanging in your apartment?
I do. I have all. Yeah.
4 by 4 foot.
Yeah,
Who
they're
made
great.
those prints?
Yes, a printer out in San Francisco because
Okay.
I used them on a job as props.
Okay.
Fantastic prints.
So now we're gonna switch over here to album covers.
Yeah, they're fun to do. I feel like these are the most fun to do because it's the most conceptual.
And this is when
Freeform.
this is probably when I should have saved the question for, do people really need liner notes any longer? And this
Yes,
is the answer is yes. They do need liner notes.
Yeah, people who are fans read this stuff and they love it.
Yeah.
And it also gives a sense of history of the music that's being put out there. So I would never want that to go away for any reason.
Right. Well, the guys who were into albums complained when albums went to CDs because mainly I think because they didn't have any place to break up their weed. but then but now it's like then the CD.
Seth is mad at you
Then
now.
the CD. I don't think he's mad. You mad at me for that? Is that beyond what it? Okay. All right.
So I mean, talking about because I shoot so much advertising and a lot of it's produced, even though it may look like it's not produced.
Right.
I get funny questions like, did you just shoot that on the street? It's like, no, we had 10 people surrounding me making it look like it was just shot on the street.
like it's the same way when casual golf fans who don't play golf will just watch the Masters and assume golf is really easy. Or they watch street style BMX and they assume that, because that's in the street style BMX, and they assume that it's really easy because you're watching guys that have spent their whole lives dedicated to doing this thing that you are watching right there, and making it look easy is really the compliment that people give you backhandedly.
Yes.
And they don't know they're backhanding the compliment. You know what I mean? Oh, it's just so good. You make it look easy.
What's my favorite comment that I get when I show my work to someone who doesn't know me, who doesn't know I've been doing this for a lot of years? They're like, so, you do this for a living?
Well, that's a whole nother conversation that we can
But it's
have.
just sort of funny sometimes. And that actually is an awesome comment because that's, it looks natural. The stuff looks natural.
Right.
And if I can get it to look natural, as if I walked out of my house and just picked up my camera with all the production that goes behind some of the shots, then great.
Right. What's your camera of preference? And this is for the photographers out there. What's your camera preference and what do you shoot with?
I own 2 cameras. I own the Canon 1DS and I own a Sony A7R. The Sony I shoot for video, the Canon I shoot for stills. But if budget allows, I love shooting that Hasselblad with the P-backs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
See, I have this whole thing that I want to buy a Hasselblad and have a 60 millimeter lens and go around shooting film. But I know I'll just have it and it'll sit on my desk at home or on my coffee table, and it'll gather dust. And
They're super fun to use. I like having both on set. So if you can, and that way you can see the difference of it, and shoot variations on things. Like I like that. That would be the best, like optimal way to go.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm picking up the Canon I've used for so long. Like I started out with Nikon in college, and I used that with film probably through the 90s.
And the autofocus systems on the Canons became so much better when digital, and so a lot of people made the switch. I made the switch, and then I switched back, although I don't use it as much as I.
And I still own my Pentax. The
6.7.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
love that. I
all
love
the
that.
lenses.
I love that camera too.
And I still have like a brick of Triax, and I'm like, who gets this? Like, what client is worthy of the Triax?
So I'm sitting here looking at the screen right here, and it's got a huge. It says "I Date a Hooker" by Jeff Fisher, photography by Laura Crosta. Tell me, as you tell me about this project, I'm just going to scroll through any of the images, and if you want me to stop, just let me know.
This was a project that I did with.
This is Jeff.
This is Jeff with Mother New York, and I think it was called Blue Q, were the books that were sold at different novelty stores.
Okay.
And the whole project was Jeff, who dated hookers, and we casted everything, but casted it in reality. The guy Jeff is my friend who did actually date hookers. All the women in the project that we're shooting worked in the sex industry in some manner. Like some were escorts, some worked on X-rated films, like this lady you're seeing right here, and some were former hookers that now were actresses on Law and Order and shows like that, which I thought, I was like, okay, that's great. And they just wanted to have something that was intriguing and controversial.
Right.
So basically he went on these 6 dates. So we set up the shoot with him having 2 dates a day.
Okay.
Morning date and an afternoon date. And we just let him go. He is sort of a character in his own right.
Right. How does the conversation go? You call up like the former sex worker and be like, "Hey, we have this idea." Like, is that you, or is that the ad agency, or?
I had my producer do it, or my production manager, and he got hung up on a lot of times. We put ads, I think, on Craigslist at the time.
Right.
We put, I can't remember where else we put ads on, but he basically called through Los Angeles different places that he knew of. And the reason I asked him to do it was because at the time, maybe I was divorced, he had done the bachelor party for my ex-husband.
Okay.
And I knew that they had dancers at it, and I was like, oh, he knows.
He's got it know.
He's got the connect.
Right.
So we kind of went straight to that source, the real source. And the Jeff, who's in the photos, I asked him as well because he used to hang out with a bunch of sex workers. And sort of went down that road so we could find, the natural, real look.
Now, do
Does that
you
make
have?
sense?
I know. Yeah, no. I think
Yeah.
it makes total sense. The funny thing is, like when I was first researching to taking this new position and then finding people to help promote their work to, you were that's one of the things that I really remember sticking out to me this whole project, which I thought was amazing. Now,
I can say what I can say about it is that's how I translate production on a lot of my shoots and also my personal work. I want it to be real. So how can I make it real? Like, does this person actually do what we're suggesting they do?
Right.
And I think that brings just a sense of reality and authenticity to all the images I'm attempting to shoot.
Right. And we're gonna go to the main here because I don't want to miss. It's our last folder, and I don't want to miss all the real current work that you're. And as we go through this, I'd like to ask people 2 stock questions. If you were just starting out in this business, somebody came over to you and asked you, what would be the advice you would give a young photographer nowadays?
I think initially I would just say shoot as many different types of photography and see what you are good at. Like shoot portraits, shoot people doing stuff, shoot sports, shoot product, and what you're good at will come to the surface, because it's not always what you want to do. I think that is your best medium or your best subject matter.
Play to your strengths,
Yeah.
not your weaknesses.
Yeah. Because I remember when I first started putting my pictures together, like I would get a critique from friends of mine, and they would say, wow, this one here is really speaks to me. And I'm like, you should try that direction for a little bit, in the development of like what my work was going to look like.
Right.
And I think it's just interesting exploring all of those avenues. And so one, you can learn, like also shoot in studio, learn how to use lights, like learn all the aspects of photography, because these jobs, regardless of what you're shooting for, it happens at that moment. You have one day to shoot it, and you have to solve whatever issue is in front of you. If it's a cloudy day and it was supposed to be sunny, how do I make it sunny?
Right.
If it's pouring down rain,
how do we make it sunny?
How do we make it sunny? So like it's so much problem solving all the time. So if you learn how to solve all those problems on your own, you'll be much better prepared to solve all those problems when you actually have 10 clients behind you.
Yeah.
Wanting you to produce something. It's it's not, oh, I feel. It's like, no, you need to deliver.
That's, it's really funny because I've been in meetings where I've heard photographers talked about like, well, I really like his or her work, but I don't feel like they can run the production.
Yeah.
And I think exuding confidence in a meeting is probably more important than having the chop. I mean, you need both, but having the chops to really shoot the job.
I think combination of both.
The combination of both.
Yeah.
I feel like people have way too much confidence in poor abilities at the moment.
And after you do it so many times, like some of the pitfalls, and what should be in your kit when you get there,
right? And
what should be in the truck, or in your bag if it's a simple shoot.
Like my big, and I'm hanging up on this picture because I want Laura to talk about it. But my thing is, I would always, when I was shooting portraits, I would shoot a lot of .com executives, and I did some celebrities. I'd always tell them my birthday was their birthday. I'd research their birthday because it immediately kind of breaks down. And maybe I told this on the last one too. But I feel like it breaks down that wall and at least gives you something.
You have to find something in common with your subject.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is.
Whatever it is.
Even if it's, this most minute thing, you have to find something in common. And that, after meeting so many people, I love people and I love talking to people, and I'll talk to anyone just to see what they're about and what they're...
I think if you're going to shoot people, having an interest in people is really important, right? And that's part of where you talk about finding out what you shoot a lot of stuff. Yeah. And find out what your strengths are. Yeah. While we're at this, tell me about this picture because I know it's one of your favorites.
I love this picture. It's an older photo. It is, I shot cross-processed.
There you go. There's your cross-process.
Yeah. So I was hired to shoot the band for a music magazine back in LA. And I showed up, and they were all in these suits, and they looked like they were accountants. And I was like, crap.
This is a band?
Yeah. Yeah. So I always
they're like a metal band or something like that.
No,
that would be hilarious. Okay, but go ahead.
So I always show up early just to kind of get the lay of the land. Met them, saw what they were wearing, and then did my scouting. So I went down to the town. It was like Inland Empire. There was a street that had all these old storefronts.
Where's Inland Empire?
I think it's like an hour outside of Los Angeles in the east direction.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've driven everywhere there.
Like it says inland, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I just found different places that would sort of tell their particular story. And when I saw them, they felt constricted.
Was it a new band? They were just uncomfortable being photographed?
They were just like humorously awkward, and super nice. At the same time, and their music had an eclectic vibe to it. So with the sign, the collectibles, and being in the window of the antique store, I just thought it spoke to what they were trying to portray in their music, as well as, you know.
Yeah, it would be amazing if the band's name was The Collectibles. That's the only thing that would make this picture better. I've been looking at this picture on and off for a long time, and I really like it. I think it's really good.
It's funny because I've taken it out of the book at points in my career, and people who have known me for years are like, "Where's that photo?
Yeah.
Why is that photo out?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's going back in."
It's really good. All right, we're gonna move on a little bit. If you're out at dinner and you're gonna have a dessert, what's your favorite?
Bourbon.
A bourbon dessert. Yeah. What kind of bourbon okay, let's riff on that a little bit. What kind of bourbon do you enjoy?
Midnight Summer's Dram.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it's a High West one that only comes out once a year.
Okay.
I love it.
And
I missed it this year.
You missed it this year.
Yeah.
I had a little Irish whiskey last night, and I tried it with those rocks in it that you put in the freezer. They don't really make it all that cold. Yeah. They were a gift. I'm sorry if the person watching.
Right now, I would love to do a bourbon job. Just like go to all the distilleries and
When we lived in Ohio for a while, we wanted to go down the bourbon trail in Kentucky, but we did not. I was just thinking it's probably a recipe for disaster. Like going and drinking and then going to the next distillery and drinking. I bet you this got to be like a van tour.
Yeah, you have to do it with a van tour.
Yeah.
Or not even a bike, because a bike would be bad too. I did the Nika. You know, Nika is a Japanese whiskey.
I've had the.
Remember I told you I love skiing?
Yasuka.
Sanatori?
Yeah, the Suntory.
Suntory, yeah.
Yeah. And is that Japanese?
Yeah. So the past 2 years I've gone skiing in Japan, which is the most amazing experience in my entire life. Powder, crazy. Makes me happy.
She likes skiing.
So if you go back to the Japanese one, I was heading down to Kyoto after the ski trip on the Shinkansen. And I was sort of observing when the train comes in, the workers would bow to the conductor as he got off the train. And I just, there's so much like interesting Japanese culture that occurs.
Yeah.
You're just like, wow, that's kind of nice.
It is one of those places that I really want to go to. And I know I'm going through them very fast.
This particular year, I interviewed a fishmonger that worked at the fish market in Tokyo.
Oh, is that the one place where you get the freshest sushi in the world?
Yeah. So that's something I'm working on right now because I just shot him at the end of January, so it's the next edit.
It's all about like, isn't it funny? Like whenever you go someplace and travel, it's all about the food. Like you just find the restaurants you want to go to. And you go there because that's the food that you want.
I went to the fish market and just bought like a tray of uni.
Yeah.
And just
just
ate it. So if you go back to the guy with Obama.
The guy with Obama?
Yeah. Ghana. You can go to the Ghana thing.
Oh, okay. We're going to show the Ghana thing, and then I want to show your short film, and then we're going to punch out because if we make these things over 45 minutes, people yell. Not Seth.
Do you want to hit the advertising stuff too, or no?
Yeah. You want to go Ghana?
Do Ghana first,
Okay.
because Ghana's interesting.
Okay.
I had thought, this is another personal project, I had intended to go to Ghana and volunteer. And a friend of mine had said to me, why don't you just volunteer your photography instead, as opposed to going to an orphanage? I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. So
Let's play to your strengths.
Yeah. I mean, I'm good with kids,
right.
but my camera I'm much better at. So I started researching different people who may need photography. And this one particular, a musician friend of mine said, my buddy married a Ghanaian woman and they own a school in Cape Three Points. And they could use some photos for their website to generate revenue for the school because they were building a new school. So I went there and I stayed with them for 4 days and documented the entire experience, so that
That's amazing. What an experience to be able to partake in as well.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Very kind people. The kids would walk upwards to 3 miles to get to the school, so they could be educated.
They want to learn, right?
Yeah, along the way also. So this one particularly, he's the chief of the village next to the school. So a lot of the kids from that village go to the school.
Right.
So Rory, who owns the school, was like, "Can you go down and take a picture of the chief? He would love a picture of his family."
Wow.
So me and another one of the teachers rode down there on our bikes and met them and photographed them.
Do you show up the following year with like prints for people or anything like that?
I sent them to him.
Oh,
yeah.
That's massive.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
These are great. All right, we're going to hit up the advertising. But I do want to show this little. Let's segue with this little short film. With this short film first. I don't want to miss out on this.
Miss on the fact that I'm a director now as well.
Yes, Laura's a director too, so we don't want to. It's just going to hang up like it did before.
We'll see.
Oh, there we go.
I can't tell you how many times someone has told me I wish that I played with them as much as I play with my phone. Really hits home. The majority of the work is a stab at pop culture, a mirror at how we live, our obsessions, all the things that we absorb. Years and years ago, I had this ambition of being a stand-up comic. I remember like watching stand-ups and studying how stand-up comedy was written and created. And I think a lot of my humor comes from that idea of me trying to create what would be my 7 minutes on the stage in front of a crowd. But then instead of standing on a stage and telling it to you, I've painted it and put it on random pieces of wood or canvases or walls in this case. And I think this idea and Kangol is a good combination. What Kangol hat would you be?
That's awesome. That's for I would assume that's for Kangol.
The stills I did were for Kangol. The video I made for myself and Roe. And we hope they will put it on their website this coming year, because they had talked about doing a little feature on Roe. So I wanted to have the video sort of ready and waiting.
Right.
So they could use it as well.
So look, as we go through these advertising photos, I would like to find out, I'd like to know how you segued, as we wrap it up here, how you segued from shooting still photography and then getting into doing these short films for brands and a feature-length documentary as well. So tell me about that. Tell me about that first still job that led to the. What did we already talk about that with the hotel?
It was
with
since
the hotel cafe.
Yeah. It led when I was shooting them. They thought I was the best person because I knew the artists. So they asked me to shoot the documentary, and I had, humorously said to them, I've never shot a film.
And you didn't go to, did you do film in school or no?
I did a little bit because it was Newhouse. So I certainly understood it, and I have been on TV sets shooting tandem, and that's shooting advertising tandem, not behind the scenes. So I was extremely comfortable on set. So it didn't seem like such a far stretch, like the 75 minutes seemed a bit like, how do I do that?
It's hard to put together. That 30 seconds that we just, or the minute that we just looked at with the artist is probably hard to put together.
But that's part of that is the way I've approached a lot of my career. Like, I've been hired to do stuff that I don't necessarily know how to do, but I'm extremely resourceful. And with Carrie,
if you don't say so yourself.
Oh, so bad, so bad. No, I figure things out.
Problem solving.
Like Carrie just said to me, he's like, you'll figure it out. You'll just make the film. I was like, okay, I'm glad you have the confidence.
They had the confidence in you, right?
And like I had recently, probably a couple years ago, did a 360 job, like where you go up and down and everything goes around. And I didn't know how to do that as well. Right. But they wanted to hire a lifestyle photographer because some of the 360 stuff was more geared towards landscapes.
So it was like a virtual reality type of thing?
Yeah. So I learned how to do it so that I could do that successfully. And the images had a little bit more natural, less staged quality to it because I was, a people photographer as opposed to a landscape photographer.
Would you describe you as yourself as a lifestyle photographer, or is that just part of the tools in your bag?
I don't know. I would say people.
Yeah.
For me, just yeah. Although people describe me as lifestyle.
Well, people want to put they want to put labels on everybody, right? These are great. We saw these up at the top, and now they're here on grids, with people checking their phones in weird places.
Yeah, this was shot for Microsoft in Budapest, and it was shot. TV production was occurring at the same time, but we didn't always shoot with them.
Right.
On the bigger stuff, when there was a ton of talent, we did, but almost 80% of them are shot on a separate day where we were sharing talent and resources. I loved doing those. This is shot
in Beijing
in
and
Shanghai. It was for Paris Baguette, and they're one of the biggest bakeries over Asia. There's like 2,000 stores.
So you really travel, because this is Beijing, Shanghai, Singapore, Ho Chi Minh City,
New York and San Francisco.
And Singapore.
Yeah.
We already said that.
Yeah, it's great. I love doing the international jobs, because you're plopped into a city. You have to figure out where you're shooting, get yourself situated, do the job, pack up, move on to the next city, and do it again.
Do you feel like you don't really get to see the city because of that?
No, you get to see the city because you're location scouting.
Yeah.
So you see probably more of the city in a very short time than most people do, because you're running around trying to find the perfect location. And that's going to tell your story.
Tell me, and this is our wrap up here. Tell me what would be your dream job right now? What would be the one client that you would like to do a shoot for, based upon what they're showing right now?
I would say, well, I did a proposal for my dream job once. It was for American Express.
Okay.
And they wanted to highlight businesses all around the world. So I would go in and shoot stills of the business owners and shoot a little video of what their business was about. And I was just like, this is the best job ever.
It would be a best job ever.
Yeah.
And what would be, if you weren't a photographer and a director, what would you want to do?
Probably be a doctor.
A doctor? Mm-hmm. Specializing in?
Probably, I would say surgery or diseases. One of those two would be.
So you would want to cut people open. If she wasn't a photographer, she would want to cut people open. Okay. Okay, so this is the wrap up there. I'm gonna leave. We're gonna talk about this afterwards, though. I want to thank Adorama TV. I want to thank Photoserve. I want to thank Adorama TV. I said that already. I want to thank the Photo Brigade for giving us this thing. I want to thank Laura Crosta for this uncomfortable talk that we just had. And once again, Photoserve is a place where photographers come. They upload their work for creatives to come look at, and then give them work. So get in touch with me. I'm sure there's links to find that. And Laura, thank you so much for being here, and I really
Thanks,
appreciate
Peter.
your time. All right, thank you. See you next time.